In more than 20 years of working in neurology, I've seen countless stroke patients. But the story of Mr. Charles, 68 years old, still lingers in my mind. He was a gentle, organized man, a retired high school teacher. When he came to see me, he couldn't complete a full sentence. Every time he tried to speak, only a few broken sounds would come out. His tongue felt frozen, as if held in place. His eyes were alert. His hearing was fine. But he couldn't speak. His wife sat beside him, recalling every step of what had happened 2 weeks earlier. That day was just like any other evening. The family was having dinner. Mr. Charles was reaching for a piece of vegetable when suddenly, his left hand froze for a moment. His wife noticed, his face had slightly slumped to one side. For about 30 seconds, he seemed to lose control of his facial muscles. Then everything returned to normal. Everyone asked him, "Are you okay?" He smiled and said, "Probably just a numb hand from sitting too long. No big deal." He kept eating, kept chatting. No dizziness, no fall, no pain. Everything felt like nothing had ever happened. And because of that, no one called for help. No one thought about going to the doctor. No one imagined that this momentary numbness on one side of his face was his brain's first silent cry for help. 2 weeks later, Mr. Charles woke up one morning and couldn't speak. There was no heart attack. No fall. Just his voice was gone. He opened his mouth. His eyes still filled with emotion. But no words came out. An MRI scan confirmed it, a stroke in the Broca's area, the language center on the left side of his brain. A real stroke this time. And it wasn't a warning anymore. His wife cried. And I sighed, not because we couldn't help him now, but because I knew we had a chance to prevent this. 2 weeks ago, when he had that facial numbness, that was our window. We just didn't see it. Dear friend, we often think stroke hits like a thunderstorm, sudden, intense, dramatic. But the truth is, it often starts like a breeze, something gentle that we overlook. And what worries me most is this: how many people, just like Mr. Charles, are sitting quietly somewhere, feeling a momentary numbness, saying the wrong word for a second, feeling a strange twitch in the hand, and brushing it off, not realizing their brain is warning them. So what signs did Mr. Charles miss, and are you sure you've never felt them yourself? In the next part, I'll explain in the simplest way possible, what exactly is a mini-stroke or transient ischemic attack, why it doesn't cause pain, and why ignoring it can lead to something far more dangerous. We'll go inside the brain together, not through complex science, but through understanding. So that you can protect yourself and your loved ones from the smallest, quietest signs. Dear friend, in a previous video, I shared about something I call the brain's gentle collision with the dark, a brief moment, lasting just a few minutes, when blood flow to the brain slows down, oxygen runs low, and then everything returns as if nothing happened. Medically, this phenomenon is called a mini-stroke, or more precisely, a TIA, transient ischemic attack. In simple terms, it means a temporary blockage of blood flow in the brain. That name might sound long and complicated, but its meaning is actually very simple. A mini-stroke is a warning. Not a full stroke, but a quick emergency message from the brain telling you that blood flow is being disrupted. Imagine this: the brain is like a giant city filled with millions of tiny lights. Each light is a nerve cell. These lights need a steady stream of electricity to stay on. And that electricity is your blood, bringing oxygen and nutrients. When a mini-stroke occurs, blood is temporarily blocked in one tiny blood vessel, causing a small cluster of those lights to flicker out for a few minutes. Depending on where it happens, you might feel numbness in your hand or face for a few seconds, slur your words, or pick the wrong word, see blurry, like a fog across your eyes, feel dizzy while standing still, or, like Mr. Charles, Experience a brief pause in your hand or a slight tilt of your face, then feel fine again, and because it goes away so quickly, most people ignore it. They think, maybe I sat too long. Maybe just low blood pressure. Probably just didn't sleep well. What they don't know is this: at that moment, a small part of their brain was already suffocating. And once the brain has struggled for oxygen once, the next time, it may stop altogether. Unlike a full stroke, a mini-stroke doesn't leave permanent damage right away. But it is a clear message from your brain's blood vessels saying, there's a narrowing somewhere, a small plaque has formed, your blood might be too thick, or your blood pressure is unstable. Here's the real problem: about 1/3 of people who experience a mini-stroke without knowing it will go on to have a full stroke within a year. And most of those strokes happen within just days or weeks after that first warning. You can see it now. If Mr. Charles had come in right after that facial numbness, we could have done a brain scan, checked his carotid arteries, reviewed his blood work, adjusted his meds. And maybe, just by changing one pill or one habit, he could have kept his voice to this day. And I know, it may be you, or someone you love who once experienced something similar, a moment of numbness, a misspoken word, a brief pause in thought, and brushed it off because it seemed minor. But starting today, I hope you won't brush it off again. In the next part, I'll share 3 subtle but important signs, easy to confuse with everyday fatigue or aging, but in reality, they are the brain's very first red flags asking for help. Don't wait until speech is lost or until a fall forces action. Let just one moment of awareness be the reason you keep your memory and clarity for years to come. When a mini-stroke happens, it doesn't knock on the door. It doesn't sound an alarm. It just passes by softly, quietly enough to feel a little off, but not enough to feel afraid. That's why so many people ignore it. Even later, when I ask, did you notice anything unusual before the stroke? They often say, maybe. But I can't remember clearly. It went away so fast. Below are 3 signs I've seen again and again in medical records: small signals, but they're often the brain's first cry for help when blood flow is briefly disrupted. If you've ever experienced any of these, pause for a moment. Pay attention. Don't brush it off again. 1. Numbness on one side of the face or body lasting just a few minutes. Mr. Charles, who I mentioned before, experienced just a slight numbness on the left side of his face while eating. No pain. No facial droop. No loss of control. Just a tingling, like pins and needles, and then it was gone. Many people think it's from sitting too long or lying on one side. But if only one side of your body goes numb, especially your left hand or one side of your face, and it happens while you're at rest, not applying pressure to that area, then it's probably not a physical issue, it's a message from the brain. Warning sign: the brain has 2 hemispheres that control opposite sides of the body. When blood flow to one side slows down, the other side might feel off. That's the first red flag. What to do? Write down the time it happened, let someone in your family know. If it happens again, get checked within 24 hours. 2. Slurred speech, tongue-tied, or saying the wrong word like your mouth loses connection. Mrs. Linda, one of my patients, told me that while talking to her grandson, she meant to say bread but ended up saying, the thing. For breakfast. I can't find the word. Her grandson laughed, thinking she was being funny. But she was confused. She knew what she wanted to say, but her mouth wouldn't cooperate. A few minutes later, she was speaking normally again. Most people think, it's just age or I must be tired. But the language center in the brain is extremely sensitive to temporary drops in blood flow. Even a few seconds of disruption can affect your ability to choose words or control your tongue. Warning sign: you're fully conscious, you know what you want to say, but you can't find the word, or your tongue won't move right. What to do? Take note of the moment it happened. If it's occurred at least twice in a month, ask for a brain circulation check, Don't dismiss it as just aging. Talk to your doctor. 3. Brief blurry vision like fog or cloudy glasses. Mr. Robert, a longtime patient of mine, once told me that every morning, as soon as he sat up from bed, his right eye would blur for a few seconds, then clear up. He thought it was just dust. Later, it started happening more often, sometimes in his left eye, sometimes both. 2 weeks after that, he experienced a small stroke that left him dizzy and nearly falling down the stairs. Warning sign. When blood flow to the visual center slows, signals from your eyes to your brain get disrupted, you may see fog, haze, or feel like your glasses are smudged. It lasts just seconds to a minute, very easy to ignore. What to do? If your vision blurs even though there's no dryness, no dust, and your glasses are clean, write down when and where it happens. If it occurs during position changes, standing up, sitting down, tilting your head, it's important to get a brain circulation check. And here's what I want you to truly understand: there is no such thing as a small symptom when it involves the brain. Because every second your brain is without oxygen, its neurons are struggling to survive. Don't wait until you can't speak to take action. Don't wait until your limbs stop working to pay attention to what you once ignored. Next, I'll explain why older adults are more likely to miss these early signs and how we can shift our thinking around small things to prevent major loss. We don't need fear. We just need to be more awake. When I ask older patients, "Did you notice anything unusual before the stroke?" most shake their heads. But when I gently ask again, "Did you ever feel numbness in your face, stutter a little, or feel an odd dizziness?" that's when something clicks. They suddenly remember. Something small. That came. And went. And this is exactly why so many older adults miss the signs of a mini stroke. Not because they're careless, but because the brain did send a signal, only that signal was too light, too brief, and too easy to mistake for something else. Here are the 3 most common reasons I've seen. 1. The signs are too short, only 1 to 5 minutes. One patient once told me, "I felt like my arm just wouldn't lift, but it only lasted a minute. Then everything went back to normal." So he didn't think twice. He thought it was just fatigue or sleeping on it wrong. The problem is, mini strokes don't last for hours like full strokes do. They come in, cause a small interruption and fade away. But that is the first warning. It's your body trying to reset the blood flow. And if you ignore it, it could burst like water trapped too long in a brittle old pipe. 2. It gets confused with common everyday symptoms. Many signs of mini stroke look exactly like normal things we all feel. Numb hand? Maybe I leaned on it too long. Slurred words? Maybe I'm just tired or my mouth is dry. Lightheadedness? Maybe I skipped breakfast. So older adults usually don't think of checking the brain. They choose to rest, take a nap, or simply brush it off. What they don't realize is, the very things they think are fine might be stacking up episode by episode until the brain no longer warrants. It just stops. 3. They believe it'll go away, so they never get checked. Older generations are used to being patient. They're used to enduring, waiting, seeing how it goes. One woman once told me, "I just thought it was a bit of fatigue. I didn't want to worry my kids. And it passed, so I kept quiet." That's what I hear most: "I didn't want to bother anyone." But dear friend, even 1 minute of disrupted blood to the brain is a big deal. Because if the brain is short on oxygen today, it might completely shut down next week. Instead of waiting for it to pass, ask yourself, does this happen more than once? Have I felt something like this before? Did it happen to just one side of my body? If yes, talk to a doctor. Get checked. No one will judge you for being cautious. In fact, you might save your speech, your memory, your independence just by acting early. And here's the hardest part of it all: that quiet voice inside saying I'm sure it's nothing is what has cost too many people their golden opportunity to prevent a real stroke. So what's the most important key I want to share with you? It's this: one right decision after a mini stroke can preserve your memory, your voice, and your ability to live on your terms. In the next part, I'll share what could have saved Mr. Charles and what might save you. If you ever notice those signs again. I still remember standing beside Mr. Charles's hospital bed, the man who lost his voice after a full-blown stroke. His wife sat by his side, gently holding his hand. And she whispered, almost to herself, if only I had called the doctor right then. If only I hadn't thought it was just a sore arm. Those two words, if only, I've heard them many times. But what saddens me most isn't that it's too late. It's that they missed what we call the golden window, a precious time frame, just 24 to 72 hours after a mini stroke, when one right decision can prevent a much bigger loss. In that short window, if we act up to 80% of full strokes can be prevented. No miracle needed. Just one phone call. One doctor visit. One question. You might be asking yourself, what should I do if I or a loved one experiences a mini stroke? Let me tell you, there's one thing that makes all the difference: get checked within 1 to 2 days after the symptoms appear, even if they go away quickly. Don't wait for it to come back. Don't wait for weakness to set in. Even if it's just 30 seconds of facial numbness, a moment of saying the wrong word, a quick spell of dizziness when you stand up at that moment. Call your primary care doctor or go to the nearest hospital with a neurology department, write down the exact time and describe the symptoms as clearly as you can. Don't self-medicate with blood thinners or supplements unless instructed. Why is early evaluation so important? Because when you arrive early, doctors can, white checkmark emoji, run a brain MRI to check for early signs of damage, white checkmark emoji, measure blood flow through key arteries in the neck and brain, white checkmark emoji, monitor blood pressure during sleep since many mini strokes happen overnight, white checkmark emoji, test blood thickness and check how well your liver, kidneys, and heart are functioning, white checkmark emoji, review and adjust any supplements or medications you're taking, especially fish oil, ginkgo, or blood thinners. But most importantly, compass emoji, you'll get updated guidance for your current body and blood vessels, not who you were 5 years ago. I once had a patient, Susan, who experienced a very mild mini stroke. She didn't fall. She didn't slur her words. She just felt her head go quiet for about 10 seconds while cooking. But she called her son right away and made it to the hospital within 6 hours. Tests showed she had a small plaque in one of her brain arteries. Not yet blocked, but if left unnoticed, it could have turned into a full clot within weeks. We adjusted her medications, lowered her fish oil dose, and stopped the ginkgo she had been taking every night. 3 months later, she was sleeping better, waking up clear-headed, and no longer had that silent, foggy feeling. She said to me, "Just listening to you that one time helped me keep my memory. And now, let me say this to you from the heart, you don't have to do anything dramatic. Just stop. Listen when your brain speaks. Call someone. Get checked. That alone could protect your ability to speak, to remember, and to stay independent." There's a story I want to share with you next. It's about a patient who recognized the signs in time, took action and avoided a stroke altogether. A story with no if-onlys. Just a quiet moment of "I'm so glad I did." I want to share another story with you. This one has no if-only. No regrets. Just a woman who paused, listened, and in doing so, held on to everything. Her name is Joyce. She's 70 years old and lives alone in a small wooden house in Vermont. A calm, gentle woman who loves her garden. Each morning, she brews a pot of tea and reads by the window. That morning, just like any other, she was in the kitchen, holding a kettle of hot water, about to pour it into her teapot. And suddenly, her left hand felt a little weak. A soft tingling sensation spread from her fingertips to her shoulder. It lasted maybe 15 seconds. No pain. Not completely numb. Just a different feeling. Most people would ignore it. But Joyce didn't. She set the kettle down, took a breath, and picked up her phone. She called her son and simply said, "I felt a little tingling in my hand this morning. I'm okay, but can you take me in to get checked?" Her son came immediately. They arrived at the hospital within an hour. She was still alert, walking fine, and didn't have any new symptoms. But because she acted quickly, her doctors ordered an MRI and a scan of her carotid arteries. The results were clear. Joyce had just experienced a transient ischemic attack, or TIA, a mini-stroke. A small plaque was found in her middle cerebral artery. It hadn't blocked blood flow yet, but if left unnoticed, the risk of a major stroke in the next 30 days would have been dangerously high. We checked a few other things. Her early morning blood pressure was fluctuating. She'd been taking a brain supplement for the past 6 months, which contained high-dose ginkgo and fish oil, taken every night after dinner. These things, on their own, seemed harmless. But together, they were enough to push the delicate blood vessels of a 70-year-old brain into temporary dysfunction. So we made a few simple changes. White checkmark emoji. Stopped the brain supplement. White checkmark emoji. Reduced her fish oil dose. White checkmark emoji. Lightened her dinner. Less protein, easier digestion. White checkmark emoji. Recommended breathing exercises and light morning walks. White checkmark emoji. Monitored her blood pressure twice daily for a month. 3 months later, I received a postcard from Joyce. On the corner was a photo of her backyard garden, her own flowers. In gentle, flowing handwriting, she wrote, "Thank you, doctor. Because I acted early, I can still remember the names of all my favorite teas. And this morning, I taught my granddaughter how to make a proper cup with my own 2 hands." Not everyone is as lucky as Joyce. But her kind of luck isn't random. It comes from one simple act, not brushing off the small signs. You can do what she did. You can pause, call someone, get checked, and most importantly, listen to the very first message from your body. A mini stroke doesn't have to turn into a full-blown stroke. It only takes away your memory, your voice, your independence. If you ignore it. But if you respond in time, you might just get to keep everything. Up next, I'll share 3 very simple self-check questions to help you know whether you've been missing something important. No fancy tools, no doctors. Just you, and your honesty with yourself. By now, I believe you have a clearer understanding of the quiet signals your brain sends when blood flow to the brain starts to become unstable. Maybe you're thinking back over the past few weeks, a moment you used the wrong word, a brief dizzy spell one morning, or a fleeting sensation of tingling in your hand. To help you recognize these moments more clearly, I'd like to invite you to pause just for a moment and ask yourself 3 very simple questions. Don't rush to answer. Take a breath, be honest with yourself, and listen without judgment. Question 1. Have you recently spoken more slowly, used the wrong word, or felt like you lost a word? For example, you meant to say phone but said air conditioner instead. You were telling a story, and suddenly paused, unable to recall a familiar word. You knew what you wanted to say, but your tongue couldn't keep up with your thoughts. This could be a sign that the language center of your brain experienced a brief drop in blood flow. Suggested action: try to recall the exact situation. What were you doing? Was anyone with you? How long did it last? If you answered yes to this question, and it happened at least twice in the past month, you should consider seeing a doctor to check your brain circulation. Question 2. Have you ever felt a light tingling in your hand, foot, or face on one side that lasted just a few minutes and then went away? For example, your left hand dropped slightly while holding a cup of water. Your chin or lips felt fuzzy, like ants crawling across the skin. It didn't hurt, it didn't feel paralyzed, but it was clearly unusual. This is one of the most classic signs of a transient ischemic attack, also known as a mini-stroke. Suggested action: mark down the date and time when it happened. If you can still remember, there's something that always weighs heavily on me when I stand beside a patient who just had a stroke. It's not because I arrived too late. It's because they once had a chance to prevent it, they just didn't know it was a warning sign. They once said the wrong word. Felt a sudden lightheadedness one morning. Had fleeting numbness in their hand or the corner of their mouth. And they told themselves, "It's nothing, I'll feel better tomorrow." Dear friend, your brain never stays silent when it's in danger. But sometimes, its signals are too small, and you've grown used to brushing off small things after a lifetime of being strong. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing to hand you back the power to take charge of your own body. Because I believe this, we can stay clear-headed if we're willing to listen to the tiniest signs. A misused word. A slightly unsteady step. 1 second of disorientation. Any of these could be your brain crying out for help. And if you hear it, you can stop the storm before it arrives. You can protect your voice, your memory, your independence, and the precious memories you've carried for a lifetime. If you've stayed with me this far, I believe you're already doing it, tuning into your body again, and starting to reconsider things that once seemed normal. And if someone comes to mind right now, a parent, a sibling, a friend living with those small dizzy spells, that slight slur, that occasional trembling hand, please don't keep this message to yourself. Share this video with them. Not to frighten them, but gently whisper, "Let's start listening to our bodies before it's too late." And if you've ever experienced any of the signs mentioned in today's video, even just once, leave a comment below. I've had this symptom before. Because sometimes, your willingness to share might encourage someone else to finally speak up. And they'll no longer feel alone. Don't wait until you've lost your voice to realize your brain has been warning you for a long time. Because staying clear-minded doesn't begin with medicine, it begins with listening. It begins with you. It begins today. Thank you for walking this entire journey with me.